To check. Mr. Butler.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Buttimer. I live on Scottswood in Riverside, and I'm here to report back on paths. In July, the board discussed paths, and they discussed economic development and some very exciting things for the future, bringing people to the river, increasing the recreational uses of the river, and so on. I referred at that time to the concept of a missing link to connect paths along the banks of the Des Plaines. Tonight I return with some images and a low-cost plan to make that connection. It shows how we can safely travel through great landscape, past magnificent architecture, and gain priceless views. It'll take 2 minutes. I'll hand out the copy of the report, and I'll answer any questions. You can see that we had landscape changes and river changes, and they created opportunity. An opportunity to renew the relationship with Swan Pond, the banks, the bridges, and so on. There were improvements on both sides of the river. And obviously the two bridges connect them. What I referred to as the missing link. And it would complete a unique path. That missing link is basically about 400 feet behind the municipal buildings. There it is with a red line drawn in for a proposed path. And it completes a 1-mile loop. Safety is always a concern I have with pedestrians and with any sports. And there are 10 points of conflict in front. There are none behind the buildings. It shows our landscape, our great architecture, and there's characteristics of that strip. It's elevated with great views, it's 9 feet wide, and I would propose that it doesn't take much to make it usable. It's a low-cost effort with, I think, what could be a very priceless result. Here's a copy of the plan that I proposed, and here's a copy of the slides that were presented.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have now, or I'd be happy to return at your convenience.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask Mr. Buttimer?
I have a question, yeah. Are you asking anything of us right now?
Well, I'm not asking for your money. I'm not trying to take anything out of your budget. I'm basically asking for your blessing and your permission to proceed. I've recruited volunteers. The list is included in that plan. It's a pretty prestigious group, including Jim Louthan, a landscape architect and active civic leader, Tom Lupfer, who owns a landscape company. Tom is also the head of our Economic Development Commission. We sat next to each other at that meeting, and we struck up a conversation. He was asking, could we, how else could this be used? Can this be used to draw good people into town that will patronize our businesses? That's up to the long-range planning that the village is doing. My offer is to clear the path.
What do you need from the village, other than to say, Jerry, go cut?
Well, I'd like to tell you we're going to do it very economically, and we are, but we do need the village's help in a couple of areas. First off, permission. Secondly, you guys all have a duty to protect everybody, so we should constantly check in with whoever is assigned. There is debris that need to be removed. I think, and that this would be worked out with Village Manager Scalera or Public Works Director Bailey, but my guess is that we do a lot of the work on the weekends, and that we could use a chipper and a truck on Monday morning. I think we could probably avoid overtime for staff, but if they were there on Monday morning and throw things in a chipper and haul it away, then it wouldn't be in the area of your parking. I think we'd have our safety issues approved by Ed and Village Manager Scalera. Right now that area is protected by signs that say basically keep out. I would recommend that we close the east and the west end so that when we're not working, no one's in there. That's about it.
Do you have permission, Jerry, from the township to connect this path to the bridge?
Well,
The swinging bridge belongs to the township.
You're right, the township does control the bridge. Township Supervisor Tusher was cooperative last year in working with RB High School on a race that they promoted across that bridge.
Okay.
So there is no physical, I'm not anticipating any type of physical connection or any construction or any alteration whatsoever to that bridge. It'd be similar to, if I wanted to walk what becomes a 1 mile loop, I would step on the bridge, cross the other side, go down the path, come back to the
Right,
middle
but
bridge.
you need to bring the path up to the foot of the bridge, behind the building, behind the youth center, and where that parking lot is. You're going to have to bring the path up to make it, so that one could walk onto the bridge, or continue the path under the bridge and up the bank.
Right now, if you trudge through there with your machete, you'd come down the hill and you'd step over the parking lot curb, walk 10 feet, step up the next parking lot curb, walk down a 4-foot hill, and step onto the bridge. I'm not proposing altering that. I think long range, if you guys have a vision of a river walk or some other more aesthetically pleasing venture, those things should be considered.
Trustee Pollock.
Yes, I would. First of all, I very much appreciate the recommendation, the suggestion. I think it seems like a no-brainer on the surface, at least. But I would ask that, or suggest that we ask the village manager to look into this, provide a report to us about the feasibility, where we can help with or without financial assistance, topography, issues like that, and bring this back on the agenda at a future date as soon as possible for us to consider moving forward with something like this. I mean, I have no idea if this is feasible, but it sounds like a great idea.
Well, and
Having walked this parcel with Mr. Buttermer, it is feasible, albeit to the river side of this path, there is a embankment or a wall, if you will, a seawall, for lack of better words, that is probably about a foot thick, but all of about 10 feet tall in some areas. So there would have to be some fencing that would have to go along that to prevent one from falling off of that wall into the riverbank area. So, this is going to have to be part of the plan, and the fencing, and what's the fencing going to look like, and so forth. But I agree with Doug. This is some of this low-hanging fruit that we talked about. These are some of these ideas that we can implement, and I think harken off of the CMAP about taking advantage of the river and seeing the river. And if we are able to clear up this venue, it'll be a lot more, I think, a lot more pretty to host the farmers market in that parking lot if all those trees are cleared out, and one could be shopping back there and see the river. I think it'd be nice.
And I'm not proposing to add. What I'm basically recommending is to clear the runway. I think folks will be amazed when it's cleared enough that you can walk back there without coming out with poison ivy, and in a safe environment all the way around. The people will be amazed at the views, and they're going to say things like, why didn't we do this before? Now, Trustee Foley, I couldn't agree with you more, and Trustee Pollock, it will need a safety rail. It will need some type of fencing. My initial reaction is that it is so overgrown from the lower bank, not that I would ever propose anything aesthetically unpleasing in this town, but what you need for safety is going to be hidden by what's the foliage that's already there growing up from the lower bank. So you could make the 9-foot wide strip barren, and you won't see it anywhere from standing on the strip.
Trustee Sussman.
Jerry, I also appreciate you doing this and your persistence in coming back after last year's race. I think that I would agree that the village manager and his staff should take a look at this. I think all of us have obviously a couple of concerns that have been articulated. I really think we should turn it over to the village staff to have them look at what absolutely needs to be done to make it a safe and accommodating path. And then I don't know, Peter, if it's possible, given everything else that's going on, to get back to us at the next board meeting. I understand Jerry would like to start working on this really before school gets underway, because a lot of the volunteers will be... No?
Most of the volunteers on that list are all adults, from engineers to architects.
Oh, well then heck, wait till September.
Well,
You should have said, yes, it's students, yeah.
right.
No, I mean, I understand you'd like to do it sooner rather than later and get it done by bad weather.
So, I mean, this was actually one of the items that we approved on our the CMAP initiatives, was to do exactly this study to try to find out what the condition is back there. And it seems to me there's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem going on here, because until we really get that area cleared out, it's going to really be kind of hard to determine what kind of fencing or railing or something like that we actually need. Now, was it your anticipation that this railing or fencing would be donated or to the village, or?
Yes, and the next logical question is, well, who's going to give it to you and how much does it cost and what exactly is it going to look like? And my answer is, give me a target and I'll tell you what the target will look like. If you give me permission, I'll go without doing anything. You know, once we know we have a bona fide project, I'll raise the money, I'll get the fencing. This is a word I never thought I would use in beautiful Riverside, but black chain link, if it's only 42 inches high, you look right through it. You won't see it. And that will give you all the structural fence that you need to be compliant. When you have a clear runway and you say, boy, we're going to build a replica of the refectory dining room, we're going to have a veranda overlooking the river, we want stainless steel and glass, throw the other one away. Becomes your construction fence.
And actually, that's the other thing that I really like about this idea is you know, one of the things that we're going to have to look at down the road is what to do with the former youth center. And one of the things that's nice about this idea is it actually provides some access behind those buildings where our residents could actually get a sense of what's back there and the potential that is back there. So, I mean, I think we have a consensus that we'll have staff look at this, but I would encourage us to move on this as quickly as possible.
I'm thinking to myself, and I tend to run faster than I walk. But you know, I look at it and go, well, I mean, why not just start shipping it away? I mean, how can we see what the potential is until we get the stuff out of there? Again, it's the chicken and the egg. What possible? I mean, what could staff come back to us and say that would derail this project, that they don't have?
Well, and another way to look at it is, what is the worst case scenario?
Exactly.
How does it look today? I can't even screw that up. I mean, if we go back and we get started and we discover an oil pipeline running through it, we stop. If we get started and whatever comes up that would say, back off, be cautious, close it down, lock it down at both ends, and it's in fact safer than it is now.
Well, people cut through regardless. So,
Right.
you know, that's happening.
Well, right now it's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we're not keeping people out by not cleaning it
They're only
out.
cutting through behind the library. No one is
Yeah,
cutting
you
Right,
can't
right.
get behind the garage.
Right, you can't get through there.
My only concern is that once you start hacking, and then you do open the door to possible liability issues on the part of the village, and that if people access that area and something happens,
If we're just talking about how long, Peter, for you to get back to us?
it won't take me that long to.
So why 2 weeks? I think we should be able to wait 2 weeks and deal with any kind of possible liability concern that Peter or his staff may have. I don't think that should be an impediment. It's not going to snow
Mr. Marsh, do you
September
have anything
1st.
to add about the liability side of it?
In terms of liability, you know, I was looking at this, some of the materials handed out. They do propose having a waiver signed by the various volunteers. I think we'd like to, you know, make sure that says what it needs to and get it in place. I know Peter has spoke with their insurance carrier, and they want to come out and do sort of a walk around to get a sense of what might be involved. If we're talking about people using the village chipper down there, And so I think those are things that should be considered. And the other thing I wanted to point out, Ed, is this is public comment tonight. It's not really on here as an agenda item, so it's fine for everyone to sort of reach a consensus and send everybody off to do these things. But I would advise that we put it off for 2 weeks and come back with a final decision then.
So, Mr. Rutter, can you get a draft of your proposed volunteer waiver?
What I would propose is what's off of the
We could
village
just use the one,
website.
I think we could just use the one we
Okay.
use for our normal volunteers. And can you get back to us in a couple of weeks? So we'll
And-
put this on the agenda,
Perfect.
the actual agenda for action in 2 weeks.
And we don't plan on having any of the volunteers use the chipper. They can be
I'm not letting you.
very, very dangerous.
Oh, chipper.
We'd have to count them and then count them when we're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rutter. Anyone else?